Hello, everyone. This is Lauren again. So, if you don't know who I am, watch the very first video. You'll know who I am and what I do. Okay, so today's story, we're going to be deep diving into a credit card scheme. So, this one is from Montezuma Police Department, and it happened in Montezuma, Georgia, which is further down south. Okay, so here is the article and I'll read out loud some of it. So, it's called Finger Licking Crime Spree. In a saucy turn of events, Haley Garbutt has been charged with financial transaction fraud after allegedly using a stolen credit card to order a 10-piece wing and barbecue riblets combo at Papa's Pizza in Montezuma. The card, reportedly from another state, was swiped faster than a hungry local at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Officers waited patiently for Haley to arrive and collect her order before making the arrest. Apparently, she thought the only thing hotter than the grill was her getaway plan. Now, Haley will be trading her barbecue riblets for a five-star dining experience at the Macon County Jail. Chief Eric Finch commented, "We've seen some wild crimes, but this one really takes the cake, or should I say, the ribs." Yada, 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 yada. And then as the investigation continues, we urge everyone to remember stealing credit cards is a crime that we take very seriously. And then it closes out, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so let's deep dive into what happened here. So we know that this is credit card fraud, which means that allegedly Haley, who you see on screen, she used someone's card and she's not the owner of that account or card, and she's not a signer on that card. So obviously she got caught. And what may have happened, just my personal professional analysis. So if the client or owner of the credit card has their notification set up, they'll receive a text message. So this could be an online banking notification. This could be like a phone call from their fraud department, like about a suspicious transaction. And then the client just could have, they could have clearly seen it on their online banking. However, but we have confirmation for sure that it's fraud. So what we also have here is a merchant and the location, which is Montezuma, Georgia. We also have the exact restaurant's name as well, so we have a location. So depending on how the order was placed, whether this was by phone, app, or in person, we also have a name. Sometimes scammers or fraudsters, they'll use like a fake name. Turns out this happens to be her real name, who is Haley, however you say her last name, Garbutt. So how was this flagged? So the client could have already been like a victim of fraud, and the card could have been under what's called like a card watch. And a card watch is where the card, that can be a debit or a credit card, and that card is being monitored for any suspicious activity, but just for any activity overall, because the bank has already been notified that fraud has occurred on this account or card. So when the bank is already on alert, that means that someone is monitoring the client, and someone in back office has it set up so they're alerted when something takes place on that card. So when a transaction is attempted, even if it declines, they're still alerted of what happens with that card. Okay, so could the client have initiated this? Well, so the client could have initiated, when I say like if they initiated this, like initiated charges to be pressed. So the client could have initiated charges to be pressed, or the police department could have been notified of the fraudulent activity and that the perp was in their county and they just went ahead and filed charges because she literally like broke the law. So she could have duplicated this card, or someone could have done it for her. Or if the card was like legitimately lost, missing, or stolen, then she had like the actual card if it's one of those three. So if the client had already reported this card stolen, then any card attempts after that date, excluding like recurring charges that were already set up by the client, that indicates that the person who is attempting to use the card is the fraudster or a suspect in this matter. So For example, it says this occurred in a different state on the actual post. So we know for sure that this is in a different state. The account holder is in a different state than Georgia. So let's say the client lives in Massachusetts. And if the client reported the card missing on May 1st, and if the client had, like, let's say, if they had like any Amazon Prime charges or something like a monthly subscription, those are what we call like recurring charges. Then those charges would be expected to show up on that card. But if the client has ATM attempts in Georgia, like liquor store purchases, or in this case, pizza charge purchases, most likely that wasn't the client because, again, the client is, we know for sure that the client is in Massachusetts and this is occurring in Georgia. Can the client travel? Of course they can, but usually they'll notify their bank that they're traveling. And then if they use it like out of state, that's why sometimes you'll get a phone call saying, hey, was this you? You know, we see that you're in a different state, yada, yada, yada. With that being said, the person attempting to use the card is the suspect. If that person reported the card stolen on May 1st, anything after that, that's not a recurring charge, that's most likely your suspect. Most likely the client isn't jetting down to Georgia, back to Massachusetts, all the things. Now, why would she use her real name? Go figure. But obviously she failed at this, and this was just plain old stupid, is what we like to call it. But luckily, she has been apprehended and has been charged because, again, she did break the law. But that's just my commentary on it. That's just what I believe what happened behind the scenes. But obviously, we know what happened. She used somebody's card number, whether she placed it online, however she did it. And then that's another thing. Things can be tracked back with IP addresses. We're in a different era where there's so many cameras, the ones that you see and the ones that you don't see. So the fact that they were already there waiting for her, the police had already been notified that we have fraudulent activity going on and this is your suspect and this is where she's going to be. So maybe she's not abreast of like how things work in the digital world or obviously in the fraud world. But that is going to be it for Miss Haley, and we'll be following along to see what happens next. And yeah, so if you have any comments about this, or if you've been a victim of this kind of scam, if you've conducted this type of scam, please drop down in the comments and let me know. And that will be it for this one. Bye bye.